What's the funniest reason your family has wanted to disown you? My family almost disowned me because I accidentally convinced an entire wedding that I was psychic. This happened at my cousin Emma's wedding last summer. I was sitting at the singles table with a bunch of people I didn't know, just trying to get through the reception without embarrassing myself. The woman next to me, let's call her Linda, was going through a messy divorce and kept complaining about her ex-husband. She was a few drinks in and getting pretty emotional about it. Now I work in data analysis, so I'm naturally good at reading patterns and picking up on details. While Linda was talking, I noticed she kept touching this pale line on her ring finger where her wedding band used to be. She mentioned her ex was named Michael and she kept checking her phone every few minutes. Just trying to be supportive, I said, I bet Michael's the type of guy who always has to have the last word in every argument, right? Linda's jaw dropped. Oh my god, how did you know that? I just made a lucky guess based on her describing their fights. But before I could explain, she started telling everyone at our table that I was some kind of mind reader. He knew things about my ex-husband that I never told him. The people around us started getting interested. Someone asked me to read them next. Here's where I should have stopped and explained it was just a coincidence. Instead, my social anxiety kicked in and I panicked. I figured I'd play along for a minute and then change the subject. Big mistake. I looked at this guy named Patrick across from me. He was wearing a Rolex, but his shoes were scuffed up. His cologne was expensive, but his haircut looked like he did it himself. Classic signs of someone who recently came into money but wasn't used to it yet. So I said, you've recently had a major financial change in your life, something unexpected. Patrick went completely white. Turns out he just won $40,000 on a scratch-off ticket the week before and hadn't told anyone except his wife. Now the whole table was staring at me like I was some sort of wizard. More people started gathering around. Someone brought me a plate of wedding cake and asked me to tell them about their love life. Another person wanted to know about their career. I kept trying to deflect, but every time I made an observation based on obvious clues, people acted like I just revealed state secrets. This woman named Carol asked about her relationship status. She wasn't wearing a ring, had cat hair all over her dress, and kept talking about how much she loved staying home on weekends. I said she was probably single but happy about it. She started crying happy tears and told everyone I just validated her entire life philosophy. Within an hour, half the wedding reception had formed a line to get readings from me. The bride and groom's families were whispering about the psychic at table 7. My mom found me surrounded by 20 people hanging on my every word. She looked mortified. What are you doing? She whispered. I honestly have no idea, I whispered back, but by then it was too late. Uncle Frank asked me to predict the stock market. Aunt Betty wanted to know about her dead husband's spirit. Cousin Emma's mother-in-law demanded I tell her if her son's marriage would last. That's when things got really out of hand. I made the mistake of telling Emma's new mother-in-law that her son and Emma seemed very compatible based on how they interacted during the ceremony. I thought this was a safe, positive thing to say, but apparently the mother-in-law had been hoping the marriage would fail so her son would move back home. She got furious and started yelling that I was filling people's heads with false hope and interfering with God's plan. She demanded the bride and groom kick me out for practicing witchcraft at a Christian ceremony. Meanwhile, my devoutly Catholic grandmother overheard people calling me psychic and had a complete meltdown. She started praying loudly in Spanish and making the sign of the cross every time she looked at me. My dad was mortified because his coworkers were there and he'd spent years building a reputation as a serious, rational person. Now his son was apparently a fortune teller. My mom was getting interrogated by relatives asking why she never mentioned I had special gifts and whether it ran in the family. The worst part was when little cousin Timmy, who's 8 years old, asked me if his hamster was going to die soon. Everyone went silent waiting for my answer. I panicked and said the hamster would live a long, happy life. The hamster died 2 days later. Now my family gets reminded of this at every gathering. My mom introduces me to new people by saying, this is my son David. He's the one who convinced an entire wedding he was psychic and traumatized an 8-year-old about his hamster. My grandmother still crosses herself when I walk into the room. She's convinced I made some kind of deal with dark forces and keeps trying to get me to go to confession. My dad's coworkers still ask him about his psychic son whenever they see him. He stopped inviting me to company barbecues. Uncle Frank calls me every few months asking for stock tips, completely ignoring my explanations that I'm not actually psychic and work with spreadsheets for a living. And Emma's mother-in-law still sends my mom articles about the dangers of fortune telling and tarot cards. The family group chat explodes every time someone mentions anything remotely supernatural. Last Halloween, my cousin posted a picture of her kids' costumes, and my mom commented, at least none of them are dressed as psychics, with a crying laughing emoji. 3 months later, they're still threatening to leave me off the Christmas card because I embarrassed the family name with mystical nonsense, all because I made a few lucky guesses about obvious personality traits and couldn't admit I was just winging it.